Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm here with our regular Greg Palast, the what I call the voter control master. Anyhow, Greg Palast is known for his investigative reports for BBC, The Guardian, and Rolling Stone. His bestseller includes The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. Palast's new book, How Trump Stole 2020, has been released last week. The ACLU published Palast's report titled Georgia Voter Roll Purge Errors. And that's what we want to talk about. Greg, welcome once again to Politics Done Right. How are you doing, my brother?
Getting by in this cruel world.
I know it's a cruel world. First of all, I hope the fire is kind of far and away from you, or the fires.
Well, we have an orange sky and a lot of smoke I'm coughing up. So, and I see the fires right near you, right behind you.
Yeah, that is the state of the world right now, Greg. And that is what you and I are going to try. You and I and all those other activists are trying to put out. We're trying to bring some sort of normalcy back to the world.
Whoa, okay. We can do that in a half hour.
Anyhow, look, you came out with a report, and I must say that report it's a well-cited report. It's a well-done report. I'm going to when we get this all processed, I'm going to kind of put some of that in the files as well, in the video as well. Georgia is one of those states that I think should look pretty darn progressives in the near future, and it seems like they've been doing a hell of a big job trying to stop that. Why don't you tell us what your report found?
Okay. Well, and to get to your point, Georgia's now become a white minority state. There's no reason why the Republicans should be in control except through, attacks on voters of color and young voters. That's what's going on. And so I did an analysis for the ACLU of Georgia. We went through the 313,000 names of voters that were removed at the end of last year. That's 1/3 people removed from the voter rolls last year on the grounds that they'd moved, that they left the state or they left Atlanta. Listen, if you don't live in Georgia, you shouldn't be voting in Georgia. It's a crime. So were there 1/3 people that just fled Georgia or Atlanta? Where are the moving vans? We didn't see those. So we asked the experts. There are experts in America who know exactly where every single American lives. These are called advanced address hygiene experts. In addition, you are not allowed.
What is that called? I've never heard of that before.
It's a fancy word called advanced address list hygiene. They clean lists. And who do they do this for? These are specialists, licensed specialists, who do this for companies like Amazon, eBay, American Express, Home Depot. We hired the same people that Amazon uses to make sure that their deliveries are exactly to the right person, and American Express to send their bills to exactly the right person. If you move, they follow you. They don't send it to your old address. They're very good at this. And in addition, you can't use and in addition, in order to remove someone from a voter roll under federal law, you have to use a licensee of the U.S. Postal Service. There's only 19 of them. We hired the biggest one. The state of Georgia apparently broke the federal law and didn't hire an expert. Said they got something like Joe's free list of movers or something. So they removed all these people. And here's what our experts found. Exactly 198,357 persons never moved. Now, you notice the exact number. This is not a sample. We literally went name by name, obviously using some major computing power. We used about over 1,700 data points to determine exactly where Egberto Willies lives. I know where you were last Thursday at 2 p.m. if I want to find out.
Right,
I hate to say it, there is no privacy. So we have it. But imagine, just short of 200,000 people illegally removed. Now, if it was just anyone being removed random, it would be ugly. It would be awful to take away an American citizen's right to vote because some cockamamie GOP political hack decided that you don't live in Atlanta anymore. So we got their names and addresses, and that were wiped out. Remember, it's the Republican Secretary of State, a scamp named Raffensperger. Now, again, we have every single name and address, and this includes, for example, this is an extension of what we did in 2018. And for example, I was at the Atlanta polls in 2018 in November when I had the prior list, FACO list from the state of people that supposedly moved. One person after another, a great radio personality in Atlanta, I was with him, Raheem Shabazz. He went in to vote. They said, well, you moved, you can't vote here anymore. He says, what? And then Jasmine Bakhtiar, Ashley Smith, who is Latina African-American, thrown out of the polling station. And finally, another person thrown out. I was there. A woman was in tears. I said, what's going on? We have this on camera. Go to gregpalast.com. You can see it. We had Christine Jordan. So this woman was crying because her aunt, Christine Jordan, was just thrown out of the polling station. They said, you can't vote here anymore. You've been removed from the voter rolls. Why? Because she moved her house. So I went to Christine Jordan's house. Christine Jordan is 92 years old. She's been voting in the same place for 50 years. This would have been her 50th year of voting. They said she moved out of her house, or she left Atlanta or whatever. So I went to the house that they said she moved out of, which she'd been in virtually her entire life for nearly a century, okay? And when I went into her house, there was a picture of Martin Luther King at the house having dinner with her. I said, oh, you knew Martin Luther King? She says, well, that's my cousin. He came here every Sunday for dinner after church. This is Martin Luther King's 92-year-old cousin. By the way, you don't have to have a PhD to figure out that she was guilty of attempting to vote while black. And that's the big problem, because the system that they used guaranteed that they will wipe out young voters and African-American voters. So that's the game that's being played. And you know what? And thank you for having me on, because most of our press is pretty lame and ignorant. You know, that the big papers, they refuse to run the story. We literally have the names and addresses of these people. We have photos of them. We have discussions of them. We're in the houses of the people where they said they left those houses. Literally name by name. We have 240 databases. We have the licensed expert as required by law. The state doesn't. And what was their response? First they said, Greg Palast is a shill of Stacey Abrams. Well, there'd be worse things, I suppose. But I'm not a shill of Stacey Abrams.
You know, Greg, you just said something that I want to really expand on, because you're talking about why is this not the big story? The big story right now is Donald Trump stating that mail-in voting is a fraud, and if he loses, it's a fraud. That's their big story on voting. The real big story on voting is what your research is coming out with, and this report. And by the way, do I have the authority or the right or the license to post your report on our site?
Absolutely, it is absolutely. In fact, I'd be honored if you'd be hosting the report. And it's actually you'll get some good pictures. You'll see Christine.
Oh, I have it right.
Jordan.
I have it on the screen right now.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that people understand what they're doing. It's not just Georgia, but Georgia is where this started. That's why I have this book, How Trump Stole 2020, starts in Georgia, because this is where they first began this game of removing hundreds of thousands of voters. And then they took this new system that they have saying people moved. This is brand new. I've beat other systems there. If you remember, I took on something called crosscheck.
Right.
Other systems created by a guy named Chris Kobach of Kansas, the white supremacist behind Donald Trump. So, but in this case, we got a new one, a new system created and taken out by a guy named Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp is now the governor. He's the guy that swiped the election from Stacey Abrams, because he was the Secretary of State in charge of the voting. He wiped off 500,000 voters off the voter rolls while he was Secretary of State and while he's running against Stacey Abrams. You know, even the Wall Street Journal said this was like shockingly unethical to wipe out your opponent's voters while you're running for election, be in charge of the election. He should
I
have
have a
resigned.
question for you. Now you found that these addresses were right there. They should not have been removed from the rolls.
Yes.
Why is it that there isn't a judge that will tell them simply, without these people having to go ahead and reapply, why don't they just put those people right back onto the rolls?
I think that they should. But the problem is, we know what will happen. See, if like the ACLU were to go into court, we are now in September. Mm-hmm. They'll just delay, and I've actually sued this guy, Raffensperger. First, I sued Brian Kemp, and I got a federal court order for him to turn over papers, which he still hasn't done. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not doing that. And so that's very important.
Yeah. So then you think it'll take too much effort going through the courts, etc., before this election. So it's best for these people to know who they are.
Yes. So the most important thing is that we are going to start working with organizations to try to reach as many people as possible. But here's the big one. Everyone listen up. If you're watching this program, listening to this program, this is Greg Palast saying, go to gregpalast.com. Go to gregpalast.com and try.
And it's right here on the screen. So folks,
yes.
the information on Greg is right below. Go ahead,
okay,
Greg.
So you can get not only the report, but you can go to, there's a link to a site we created called SaveMyVote2020.org. SaveMyVote2020.org. And if you're in Georgia, type in your name and you will see if you've been purged. Then there's a link to re-register. And you got to do it right away. Don't mess around. Do it right away. You can do this online.
We need to repeat that, Greg. We need to repeat that. Folks that are in Georgia, where do they go again?
They can go to either gregpalast.com and get a link, or go to SaveMyVote2020.org. SaveMyVote2020.org, or just to gregpalast.com. And then you could see if you've been purged. You're one of the third of a million. And by the way, everyone that I ran into at the polling station who was purged was shocked. And like Raheem Shabazz, I had a list up before. That's how he found out he was purged. We had Dewan Mitchell, who had just come back, an Iraq war veteran. He comes back from Iraq, and they removed him from the voter rolls. We got him back on in time. Now, but Raheem didn't know, missed his deadline by a day. So they gave him what's called a provisional ballot. You'll love this. So the federal law requires that if you're illegally or wrongly removed from the voter rolls, or they do something to challenge your vote, they don't like your ID or something, they have to give you something called a provisional ballot. That's under federal law. You have to get one. But guess what? Federal law doesn't require the ballot be counted. So in Georgia, they just throw the ballots away. So you fill it out. You think you voted. It's like a placebo. You think you voted, but you haven't. So it's a placebo ballot, and you throw it away. Now, the thing is, who gets these ballots? And again, it's overwhelmingly young African-American and Hispanic voters are on this list. Hispanic voters are according to MIT and Caltech study, if you're Hispanic, the chance is 300% more likely you'll be shoved to a provisional ballot, which won't get counted as a white person. If you're African American, it's about 270% higher than a white person to get one of these placebo ballots. Now, understand, some placebo ballots get counted. 2.5 million ballots in 2016 were provisional. 2.5 million ballots, but they threw out 935,000. That's almost 1 million ballots were thrown out, overwhelmingly ballots by young people and voters of color. And if you're young and a voter of color, it's about 1,200% higher if you're young and a voter of color than an old white person getting one of these ballots. So, excuse me. And the whole system, now again, we're going after Georgia, but if you go to SaveMyVote2020.org, it has other states which we're going to be putting up quite soon. Michigan, Florida. We're trying to get Ohio. And
so you're doing, I imagine you're starting out with the contested states right now.
Yes, well, mainly because in the contested states is where the GOP has been working like maniacs, and Wisconsin. to purge voters because they can't win. Look, I'm not partisan. You know, to be honest, if people want to vote in Donald Trump, democracy has
That's
its
what
strange
democracy is
effects,
all
but
about. Yeah.
I'm willing to accept the results of democracy. But I wrote a book called How Trump Stole 2020 because they've already stolen it. We can steal it back. It's a warning, not a prediction. Again, a warning, not a prediction. How Trump Stole 2020. Do I have the book? There you go. I'm going to advertise.
Well, you know, you know the link is going to, every time I do a blog post with you, I have the link with one of your books. So I guarantee it's going to be there.
That's the one we need right now, How Trump Stole 2020. You'll enjoy it as a comic book, 48-page comic book in the middle. The destruction of America's
that was kind of
democracy.
funny. That was kind of funny
Yeah.
that I guess you had a subject that was so difficult or subject that was so depressing, you needed to give some humor in the middle, huh?
Well, here's the thing. I want people to read the book. There's great people out there writing on this topic, like the new Jim Crow, etc. But it's pretty grim and difficult to get through those books. So
Yes.
I literally wanted to make something that was deep investigative reporting, but done in an entertaining manner. The whole book is done in an entertaining manner. And then in the middle of it, 48-page comic book by Ted Rall, because I want you to get it. I want you to understand it. And I also don't want anyone to despair, because you know what? They can't steal all the votes all the time. And you can steal back the election. That is, we can bust the burglary. And again, it's not whether you're for or against Donald Trump. It's not right or left. It's right and wrong.
Right.
That's what it's about.
What I like about the book is that, again, the title shocks you, and then as soon as you're done reading it, you get the hope that you need to go out there and get something done.
Yes, and in fact, one of the important parts of the book is what I call the ballot condom at the end. It's not something you slip over your ballot, Egberto. It's something you read the 7 steps to protect your vote. And by the way, for everyone, while I want people to go, especially if you're in Georgia right now, go to SaveMyVote2020.org. But everyone must check their registration. And right now, while we're talking, you can multitask unless you're driving while listening. Please go to your, it's smoke here. It's no joke.
I know,
Board
yeah.
of Election. Go to your Secretary of State in any state, or your Board of Elections, County Board of Elections. Every single state allows you to check your registration online, except for South Dakota, where they don't bother with registration because it's really not needed. But you can check your registration online. Now, I can't tell you how many votes of people we've saved by telling people check your registration. I did, and I'm in, hip, cool California, and I looked up Greg Palast and said no such record, no voter. So I re-registered right there online. Voting online may not be a good idea, but registering online is a terrific idea, because if you filled out one of those yellow pieces of paper at a DMV, at a motor vehicle office, there's up to 40% chance it never got entered into the records. The transfer, that just does, people get shafted out of their registrations all the time.
All the time.
And of course,
yeah.
you're being flushed. Like I said, it's 1/3 people in Georgia, but 500,000 people in Ohio. They're threatening in Wisconsin to remove 153,000 voters. I should say, in the state of Wisconsin, there is Scott Walker was thrown out of office by the voters. By the way, that gives you some hope, because Wisconsin had as you'll read in How Trump Stole 2020, Wisconsin had some of the absolute worst Jim Crow taxes. This is Wisconsin. These cheese eaters. It's not, it's
right.
like you think.
Yeah, I know.
It's not the deep South here, but actually they had terrible laws, because the only way that the GOP can take control of a progressive state like Wisconsin.
And and that's why the elections that are done statewide can go to let's say progressives, while the elections that are in gerrymandered districts somehow give the state legislature a right-wing bias.
Well, that's what happens in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, you have if you added up all the Democratic votes for the state legislature in Wisconsin, the Democrats overwhelm the Republicans in Wisconsin. This is one of the most progressive states in the nation. Madison, Wisconsin, Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
But they gerrymandered the state legislative line, so the GOP has control. And again, if the GOP wins, if the Republicans win, they were chosen by the voters, I have no problem. But they chose. You shouldn't have the politicians choosing the voters. The voters should choose the political leaders. But in Wisconsin, the politicians drew lines that basically wiped out voters' rights. So they have a GOP legislature. But nevertheless, when you had a statewide vote for governor, Scott Walker was thrown out on his keister. They replaced him with Tony Evers and a guy that I flew and met with, who's a lieutenant governor, a young African-American lieutenant governor who is very concerned about voting rights.
But he's very vocal as well, Greg. That's a good thing about it. He's very vocal, so people are listening.
Yes.
But Greg, let me tell you, we are 50-something days away from the election.
Yes.
Like I said, you are the voter. You're the voting master in this country right now. You're the one that's put in the most effort, along with the people that you represent, into this voting thing. So I'm going to want you on again. I think you have to register within 30 days of the election.
Every state is different, but it's most states have a 30-day requirement. That means like about October 4th or 5th, that's it for most states. But,
so I'm going to want you.
Don't wait.
I know you. But that's why I'm about to say what I'm going to say now. I'm going to want you again in about 14 days. So that you can come on with some additional information, so that you can give us a quick synopsis of what people need to do now that we're this close to the election. So do I have that out of you?
You got that, and I want to give you one other piece of advice. If you are going to mail in your vote, and I hope you can avoid it, but if you're going to mail in your vote, you better check your registration, because guess what? If they don't mail a ballot out to you, you can't mail it back in.
Right.
1 in 10 people who request a mail-in ballot don't get them, or don't get them on time, right? So you got to ask now. Good luck. And if you don't get it, you got to go into your Board of Elections. If you don't get it by like October 15, you better go in and get your ballot. But you have to be registered to get it, and don't assume you are registered. 16.7 million people have lost their registration in the past 2 years. 16.7 million. So then check your registration. Ask for your mail-in ballot if you want that. Right? If you want that, I do recommend, if you can, if you're healthy enough, wear a mask, gloves, hazmat suit, whatever it takes. Try to vote in person, but early. Most states have early voting.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go midweek, there's no lines. Then if you wait till election day, that Tuesday,
too late. Yeah,
you're going to be in line 4, 5, 6 hours. I kid you not. This is no joke. This is what we saw in Milwaukee, and I'll tell you why, and what we saw in Atlanta, Milwaukee, Louisville. How does that happen? The answer is people don't get their mail-in ballots because they've been purged off the voter rolls and don't know it, so they don't know why they didn't get their ballot. Or the state slow-walked it to them. The head of the ACLU's husband, she asked for the ballot 45 days in advance. He got his ballot the day after the June primary, the day after the election. So people then end up in line. Don't wait for election day. It's election month, guys. In fact, the election's starting now. Some states you can already mail it in.
Yeah.
And of course, in Texas, you've got some horrendous problems on how to vote. It's also very difficult to vote by mail. I want to warn people, please. You think, mail-in voting, real simple. Just pick and lick. Pick a candidate, lick a stamp. No. You got to make sure that you make no mistakes, because about 1 in 8. That's millions of ballots. 1 in 8 ballots that are mailed in are disqualified on all kinds of
make sure your signature matches. Make sure your signature matches.
If your signature has to match exactly the one you used to register, and if you don't remember, you better re-register.
Right.
Okay, so that they have your current signature. If you've moved now under federal law, you can't lose your vote if you move next door or in your neighborhood, and usually in your county. But you're insane if you don't re-register, even if you've moved within your building. You'll never get that mail-in ballot if you've moved an inch. That's one, despite the law. The law says it should get to you, but don't count on the law to protect you. You protect you. You got a bunch of.
I like that. I like that. That we don't sit down and wait on the law. We make sure and protect ourselves. Greg, give me a closer.
Okay, well, I want to tell you, stay safe. vote safe. Get how Trump stole 2020 so you can steal it back, and go to gregpalast.com, because I will tell you every state as we start adding states to our list of the purge. We're going to create purge list. We're going to reveal these things state by state over the next 2 weeks. So please go to gregpalast.com, and especially Georgia's the first, but it's not the last. We're going to soon have up Wisconsin, Michigan, and Florida, and we'll see how many others we can capture from these scams.
Greg, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Folks, that's been Greg Palast, our voter empresario, making sure that everyone's voting. Thank you so kindly for having been here on Politics Done Right.
Thank you. Let's do it right again. Bye.
I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.